knew that Mobius's hourglass was the focus of his time-streaming magic. Farewell, sorcerer. The sands of time have ceased to flow for you.
Well done, Kain. Mobius did so love playing the trickster's part. His guise as the Oracle served his schemes well. Pity with all his plots he failed to plan for you. Come to me, my undead son. Make haste to the pillars. The stage is set for the grand finale. You will have your vengeance.
Mobius, the time streamer, and one of the Circle of the Nine is dead. We have his hourglass and can restore the pillar, but it appears that much more has been going on here than we had thought. A much bigger conspiracy, and I have a feeling that Mobius, the time streamer, is not the architect of the conspiracy. Now we're going to have to go back now. There are 3 more pillars that need to be cleansed. So let's move out. Yeah, we've seen all this before.
You betrayed us, Mortanius. You had Kain killed and turned him into a monster. You set him upon us.
It had to be. Nopraptor's insanity poisoned all of our minds. The Circle had failed in its sworn duties. It had to be destroyed.
Failed our duties? Idiot! The Circle exists for us. We don't exist for it. Our powers will save or damn Nosgoth at our whim. Stand with us, Mortanius, or die.
Then I shall die.
If the Circle is to be destroyed, you have to die as well, Necromancer. I admire your cunning, but you will not escape your fate.
Nay, I will embrace it. But my death will leave one more to take, Princeling. Finish me!
Oh, jeez. Okay, Mortanius, the Necromancer, had gone and killed off that other freaking guy. I can't remember his name. Not really, doesn't matter.
Flame sword. Flame sword.
Okay, I'm going to have to buff up my character here a little bit. 48 Hearts of Darkness is. So let's just... There's nothing here to suck the blood out of, so let's do this. So... Now we know what's going on. Mortanius, this Necromancer here, is in fact the big bad guy that we've been preparing to fight against this entire time. The guy who has has gone and the architect of all of these all this whole event. He's the one that killed Ariel. He's the one that started, who resurrected Kain. He's the one that had him killed because he needed somebody to kill off all of the Circle members. Nupraptor's corruption had driven them all insane, and he knew that they all had to die, including himself, which is why he's gone and done this. So he needs to die. He's not dead yet. He's gonna respawn somewhere, and I gotta go cut him up. I think another hit. There we go.
You thought yourself a king, when in fact you were a pawn. You have served me well, Kain.
I serve no one.
Indeed, such narrow vision. Don't you see? My silencing of Ariel and its calculated repercussions is but the first act in my theater of Grand Guignol, of which you are the tragic hero. Play on, little vampire. Play on.
Fay Victus!
Oh, here we go. Now this is the true final boss. Now, as it turns out... Hold on.
Anacroth's magic was contained within the metal of the scales and would eventually be released back into the pillar from whence it came. The scales of Anacroth I lay before the pillar of states. The pillar accepted its offering. Thus, it was restored. The death orb of Mortanius had given the necromancer dominion over the grave. I had thought him the last of the circle, and yet he spoke of another. Before the pillar of death, I lay the orb of Mortanius. The pillar accepted its offering. Thus, it was restored.
Okay, things, once again, are still not as they had seemed.
Flame sword.
The dark entity, this thing which emerged out of Mortanius, yeah, whatever, is somebody who, well, let's just say, is not a good fellow. He has gone and something I really can't get into in this game, but something that comes up in the later games, exactly what's going on. But I can say that Mortanius wasn't under his own control the entire time. He was being manipulated by this dark entity which was trying to corrupt the pillars, was trying to get orchestrated the events, controlling Mortanius, going and to get Nupraptor's corruption emotions going, and that was what actually controlled Mortanius when he killed Ariel. Now, it didn't have complete control over the Necromancer. He managed to break free with his own will occasionally and use that opportunity to go and set motion the events that led to Kain's resurrection and the destruction of the pillars, destruction of the circle. So there we have it. Now, now that Mortanius has been killed, the dark entity now has emerged, but Kain has already restored the pillar. But as it turns out, there is one more circle member left. Ariel, the balance guardian, is in fact not the guardian of balance right now because, well, she died 30 years ago. She is not the current balance guardian. But we'll figure that out, deal with that problem in a minute. We have to kill the dark entity. Do the normal, raise your shields, bring out your magic, grab the Soul Reaver, chop a sumbitch up. Oh, the pain! Okay, it withstood the attack by the Soul Reaver. And while you're using the Soul Reaver while you don't have any magic, it really doesn't do any damage. It does damage, but not much. So, if I were to do my best here, I would go through this irritatingly long load screen and do all this shit over again. Grab myself the Soul Reaver one more time and cut this thing's damn head off. Boom! Oh, you didn't like that, did you? Damn it. Okay, you know what? Just flame sword this son bitch. There we are. Oh, a save. That's a weird time to throw a save at us.
I am the last pillar, the only survivor of the Circle of Nine. At my whim, the world will be healed or damned. At my whim.
And a choice is laid at our feet. Do we choose, since we've discovered ourselves just now, to be the final Pillar Guardian, the new Guardian of Balance, after Ariel's death? We have to either sacrifice ourselves to restore the Pillar, and the protection that the Pillars provide continues, or we reject that, choose our own life, and neglect the Pillars and go on. Now, obviously, I guess they were kind of expecting a lot of people to go and choose the good ending. Kain sacrifices himself to restore the Pillar. But, you know, as far as the story canon goes, he did not. And it really doesn't fit Kain's character to go and choose the good ending. So I'm going to choose the bad ending.
Once I embraced my powers, I realized that Vorador was correct. We are gods. Dark gods. And it is our duty to thin the herd.
I am victorious. I've killed 14,000 or 1,463 killings. Jeez. I didn't get that many secrets though. I'm a gimp. Oh, that's a shame. Sure, I did better than that. And there are the credits. There we go. That was Blood Omen, A Legacy of Kain. And this game continued on for a number of other games. And I'm wondering, I'm still racking my brain over how I am going to continue on with this series, because I want to play at least one more game in this series. And I don't know whether it should be Soul Reaver, which was the next game released back in 1999, or should play Blood Omen 2, which I think was made in 2000 or 2001. Chronologically, the game Blood Omen 2 takes place after the first game here, but it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense unless you play Soul Reaver and then Soul Reaver 2 first, so I'm really confused over what I should be doing there. But anyway, I'll think about that, and maybe I'll continue on with this later. But this game, I think it really had a hell of an influence in the way stories were going to be played out in future games. Because back when this game was released, back in the early days of the PlayStation 1, games were still largely considered to be something that children did, like the Super Nintendo, and even the Sega Genesis, which kind of marketed itself as being edgier, was still very much based on the idea that kids were playing this. The age of that games were marketed to was like 10 to 13 or 8 to 13 or something like that. Nowadays it's something like 15 to 35 or something like that. And this game, I like to think, even though it probably really didn't have that huge impact that I'm thinking it did, it really set a precedent for having a much more mature story, a more mature form of gameplay. And although it was extraordinarily violent, it wasn't kind of like the cartoony kind of setup that the games like Mortal Kombat had done. And it was from this, with the more mature storyline and all that kind of stuff, really sort of set a precedent that I'm thinking a lot of other games followed suit with. And here we are back at the title screen. And I'm going to talk a little bit more and then shut the camera off once I feel like I've expended my thoughts here. Well, maybe I've already done that. Well, anyway, I'll talk about the sequels a little bit. The game was developed by Silicon Knights, which was I don't know if it still exists or not, but it was a development studio that thought of this idea and developed the game, but it was published by another company called another company called Crystal Dynamics, which was eventually absorbed by Eidos and then there's Square Enix. But the development of this series was pulled away because Crystal Dynamics had published the game. They essentially retained ownership of the intellectual property. Now, I don't know who owns the actual original Blood Omen game. That may still be a Silicon Knights thing, but the series itself belongs to Crystal Dynamics, and development of the series took a rather radical change when Soul Reaver, the first sequel, was released. And that saw it picked up by a number of different developers in a different studio, and it wildly diverged from what the original plan for the series was. And I'll talk a little bit more about this when I play the game Soul Reaver, which will probably be the next game. So, thanks for watching, and goodbye.